You know, in the earlier days, there wasn't DCMA. There were the AF pros, the NAF pros. So each service had their own people at the plant.
Okay.
And at some plants, it might be a NAV pro, and then the Air Force would delegate to them. So they didn't have a very strong role back in the early days.
Okay.
I'm not sure when DCMA came around. It was, I would say around 2000.
Okay.
And so they started then centralizing things more. In the earlier days, the services each had a representative on, the earned value. They called it the PIMJAG, and I don't remember what that stands for anymore, but the Air Force had a person, the Navy, the Army, and those guys really directed where earned value was going. And then all DCMA did was they were your on-site folks, they were the AFPRO, NAPRO at the time, but they were your eyes and ears on site. You could call and say, hey, I'm looking at this data, it doesn't look right, will you go talk to this CAM for me? But they typically had like one or two people on the review as opposed to really running the review. The programs ran the reviews.
Perhaps in much the same way that Whitey Driesnack is referred to as the father of earned value management, Gary Troop is respected as one of the key influences in the computerization of cost schedule analysis.
I don't think anybody goes to college, well, maybe today they didn't, but back then, going into project management, it was really not a big known field to go into. So I was in ROTC, and my plan was to go into the Air Force and fly airplanes, preferably an A-10 fighter. The problem was there were too many pilots left over at that time. My dad was a colonel in the Air Force, and he was the comptroller at Eglin, one of the 4 acquisition bases. And so he was the top financial guy. He was very instrumental in bringing cost estimating into the Air Force, the parametric cost estimating, very smart guy. And he said the place that I belonged was out in Los Angeles at Los Angeles Air Force Station, where they did the space work. It was probably one of the laxer bases in terms of being a real military installation. He thought I would fit better there. So that's where I learned program management. I had a great boss out there that I think was a visionary in this, and also was technically very astute. And so I learned about budgeting, scope management, scheduling there, and I did a lot of earned value reviews for the Air Force.
Now, you say you did earned value reviews. Did the term exist at that time?
No, it was
okay.
cost schedule control systems at the time.
Okay.
And so I went to AFIT and took a course and a couple other places. And so I would do analysis of contractors' data, and I would review their systems. And I met a pretty woman out there in Los Angeles that had her own business, and she was very successful. And so that started me thinking about what I really wanted to do. And so I decided I was going to marry her, and she wasn't willing to move around, so I shifted gears. And I went to work for a company that won a contract to automate the financial systems at Space Division. And I was their functional person. I understood budgeting, budget execution, earned value analysis, so I would advise the programmers about what to do, what to build, what it needed to look like, what it needed to do. And that's how I got into computers. I didn't like computers in college. I took one class with punch cards and I hated it. But at that moment in time, the first PCs came out, and I was drawn to those. It was no longer punch cards, it was interactive. And so
again, around what year is that now?
That was 83.
83, okay.
83, right around 83.
Okay.
And so I found that I had a knack with computers. And so we built, actually the first tools we built were on VAX 11780s, which were mini computers built by VAX, and then, or digital. And then we started working with the microcomputers, and I built the first version of the analytical tool called Performance Analyzer.
Now, when you say you built, what do you mean by that?
So I had a programmer, a team of technical guys, and I worked with them, and we built a tool that would consume data, electronic feeds to data, and do analysis of cost performance reports, trend charts, those type of things.
1989 marked a significant shift of the cultural perception of earned value management. The organization responsible for cost schedule policy was transferred from the Department of Defense Comptroller Organization to the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, which oversees program management.